Hi everyone. I'm doing this outside again as much as I can while the weather permits because it is definitely, even though it's warm, it's warmer than it was before, it's feeling like autumn and it's coming very close to the change of seasons. So I am doing as many lives as I can outside, and it's nice to be outside because I've been inside actually doing a lot of details, catching up with details that I've needed to do. So very Virgo of me, and the sun's in Virgo. And if you've been catching me on my latest lives, I've been talking about Mars and Virgo opposing Neptune. And one of the things I wanted to bring up to our attention today is that Mars and Virgo is now coming to a trine with Pluto and Capricorn. Pluto's retrograde. So that's really nice energy because it's a trine, and Mars and Pluto are kind of a couple. Mars acts on behalf of Plutonian energy. Pluto is the feminine aspect or guide to Scorpio, and Mars is the masculine guide to Scorpio. Mars is the ancient ruler or guide of Scorpio. And, Mars also rules Aries. So Mars is an initiator. And Mars and Pluto work good together because, Pluto is the unconscious desires of the soul, and Mars acts on behalf of those desires. Really, when we have Pluto in Capricorn and retrograde, this is really assessing, where do we need parameters and boundaries so that we can funnel our consciousness in the most effective way that would be for us and our personal evolution. So it is a very personal thing, especially when you put Mars in Virgo, because Virgo is the priest or priestess. This is the part of our psyche that is devoted to the collective consciousness, the divine, and however we see the divine, however we connect to the divine. Some say or name this God or goddess or source energy. However you name that. So after Mars opposing Neptune, like I said yesterday and the day before, this can really be a call to really trusting our own inner guidance. It's going to be likely an opposition energy. So it's an opposition energy because it's opposing, right? Mars opposing Neptune. So this is where, there's likely opposition in the outer world or coming from the outer world or something we're experiencing, even if it's just internally, where we're recognizing our differences with the collective, and that's okay, because the thing is the collective is basically, a world full of individual souls who have their own path of evolution. So we're not going to be like everyone else, and everyone else is not going to be like us. And this is really, I think this opposition can really give us the opportunity to really recognize that and honor our own path and our own understanding of the divine and what needs to happen for us in our own evolution, regardless of what other people are needing for their evolutionary path. So, we have that opposition, and then we actually have a nice trine. Trine is an ease of energy with Pluto retrograde and Capricorn. So this can be, okay, now I know where I need to place boundaries. Now I know where I need to actually create some parameters, create some structures and consciousness that actually make sure that my energy is efficient, that I'm not distracted by things that I don't resonate with, by people I don't resonate with, by situations I don't resonate with personally, so that I can really funnel my energy in a structure of consciousness that is effective and actually helps me to reach my goals of evolution in this lifetime and moving forward. So this is a beautiful trine. It's actually going to be in the new moon in Virgo chart, or so on the day of the new moon. This will be part of the signatures in the chart, which is wonderful. So I was thinking to bring this to our attention today because it's important. These are important planets to follow, and an important evolution of energy as we move through these days, moving up to the new moon in Virgo. And so I wanted to talk about that, and that just gives you a very concise, description of this. And I think it really is encompassing as well. So I was thinking, I brought my cards out, and I was thinking, maybe we could pull a card from our Carolyn Mace archetype cards for collective contemplation as we are working with this Mars opposition Neptune energy, and as we're moving into the Mars trine Pluto. Maybe it could give us all some insight around what we can just kind of contemplate individually, but also collectively, right? In order to utilize this energy in the most efficient way, as Virgo would like it, and also in guiding us towards this new moon, where we can really set intentions for new moon in Virgo, right? So this would be, especially with the configurations, how we're moving forward, because the moon sun is conjunct at the new moon, trining Uranus and Taurus, how we're moving forward on our own up-leveled values. And everything we've been experiencing is actually giving us the opportunity to up-level our values and move us forward into a new time in our lives, a new trajectory. And then as well as the fact that the Mars is going to be in Virgo, trining Pluto retrograde in Capricorn. So really reconfiguring where our boundaries need to be so that we are really funneling our energy efficiently like Virgo likes. And, even if you don't have planets in Virgo, you still have Virgo consciousness somewhere in your chart. And so you can look for that in what house it's in. The house is actually indicating what area of life your Virgoan consciousness is being funneled into. So it can bring you some more interesting and unique information for you. And if you don't already know, you can actually, if you don't have a copy of your chart, you can go to astro.com and they will allow you to draw up 100 free charts. You can create an account for free, and then you can draw up your own chart. You can draw up your family or friend's chart. It's really great. And then you can look at, where is Virgo consciousness in my chart? And, how am I funneling this new moon energy, seeding new intentions around Virgoan energy, which is, it's the priest or priestess. This is the part of us that are devoted to bringing a service to the divine, a service to the collective, that is in a alignment with our personal path. So I'm going to shuffle the cards because I did use these cards somewhere else, and I want to make sure that they are shuffled. So actually, while I'm shuffling, I can look at the comments, and you can actually ask me a question about Virgo if you want. Oh, great. Thank you. Hi, Johnny and Joy. Yay. So anyways, Joy, I wanted to tell you that I did answer your questions yesterday on the live. I think you may have needed to hop off or something. So I just want you to know I actually answered the questions you were sharing, and it was really, I felt like they were such important questions, because one was about really just having boundaries with ourselves. And I think, because we all do have a shadow, meaning we all have more to learn. We're here doing it, we're learning, we're constantly improving ourselves. And, Virgo is all about self-improvement. And this is our greatest service to the collective and to the divine, is to always be doing our shadow work and improving and expanding our consciousness and our devotion to our own evolution. That is the best gift I think that we could ever give life itself. And so I loved that question, because it was really bringing a really important piece to the conversation about, yes, there will be times in our lives we actually have to create boundaries in which we realize that maybe our boundaries of the past don't resonate anymore, meaning we need more boundaries, or maybe we need less boundaries. It's an interesting balancing act, because the thing is that we can sometimes have boundaries in places to protect ourselves, and then we actually close ourselves off from more love or more experience that we could have, and vice versa. And often the thing is that boundary work is really important, because especially for those of us that have had our boundaries violated in some way in the past, and I would suspect that's probably everybody, right? We've all probably experienced a violation of boundaries in the past. And so sometimes when our boundaries have been violated, we can actually get confused around boundaries. We can actually not have appropriate boundaries with ourselves because our boundaries are violated. And so it can create this confusion around boundaries. But I do want to say that also the silver lining in that is that it gives us the exercise and the opportunity to have a even more strengthened capacity for understanding appropriate boundaries by having had that weakness or that experience of the past. And so it's kind of like with the bones. And by the way, the bones are related to Saturn and Capricorn, which is boundaries. So, it's like when you fracture a bone, when it heals, it actually heals stronger. So I just want to give that as an analogy to that, it's okay if we find ourselves in a place where we realize, wow, I didn't have appropriate boundaries with another person, or however that may have shown up, whether we wished we had better boundaries with ourselves or with another person or whatever. This is a learning experience, and we can actually get really, really good at boundaries. And when we do that, which is the work of Pluto and Capricorn, really, then we get to actually funnel all of our energy, and our empowerment and our power is really funneled to that understanding of boundaries. Because when we have, it's like I think of a tunnel kind of when I think of Capricorn, because tunnels have these they have these walls, but this makes the energy that flows through those tunnels like almost like the veins. Consciousness travels through the blood, right, in the veins, of the walls of the veins. They direct the energy, so they direct the blood and the nutrients to all the tissues, and it's this funneling system of consciousness. And I always think of the blood as it's actually consciousness. Just like water carries consciousness, our blood carries consciousness to all the tissues, and it informs all the tissues and structures of the body. So we need boundaries. Like we need veins, we need veins to direct that consciousness through the body, because if we didn't, it would not be all connected, right? So we have to have those boundaries to funnel energy and in effective ways, so that our health and well-being is actually appropriately exercised. It's I'm trying to think of good words for it. The thing is Virgo's all about health, and the earth signs really are all about health and efficient use of energy on the earth plane. So you have Taurus, which is the body, everything we need in the body to survive. Virgo is okay, now I need to sort out all of this earth stuff that's bringing nutrition to my life, but I also need to sort out like what's actually distracting and what's actually going to become toxic if I hold on to it, because it's just too much. And then Capricorn is after you've been really understanding, refining, and actually organizing information and organizing what stays, what goes, what's going to help you move forward, and what's going to actually be weight on you if you hold on to it. Then once we get to Capricorn, it's like, okay, now let's just funnel all of this into building a structure of reality that works for us and that actually helps us to achieve our goals. Capricorn is very much about achieving things on the earth plane, achieving our goals. And transiting Pluto, moving through there, is the achievement here is really doing any kind of shadow work we have around appropriate boundaries and funneling our energy in a way that's actually going to serve us and our reality. and the reality we'd like to experience in the world, as well as, wisdom, because Capricorn is very much about wisdom and self-mastery. So how can we funnel our energy in a really efficient way to achieve our self-mastery, which is, I think, very lovely. So I am I a nutritionist? I did take a nutrition program that was, I think it was just over a year, and but I am not a dietitian. I thought about doing nutrition counseling, and I just haven't. I would say I probably incorporate it with astrology readings more than I would just do nutrition, although I'm not opposed to it. I just haven't focused my energy in actually offering those services just for nutrition. But it goes so nicely with doing a natal reading, and I know that's likely surprising, but the astrology, the natal chart very much describes the body and the expression of the body and consciousness through the body. And so you can really work with the chart and work with nutrition and the body chemistry that's actually reflected in the natal chart. And so I know, when I do readings, I really like to give people things that are practices or things that would be beneficial to them for what they're working with in the reading. And nutrition could be one of those things. So it's something I bring along with me, but it's not necessarily something I always offer as just a standalone service. Okay, so I'm going to shuffle one more time, and I'd like to, I'll pick a card for all of us that we can individually contemplate how we relate to it personally, but also for collective contemplation in regards to this Mars opposition Neptune, and then Mars trining Pluto retrograde, and then the new moon in Virgo as we're, really moving into that energy. That's so great. Mystic. So it says, the light attribute revels in intimate union with the divine. Shadow attribute is delusional rapport with the divine. Oh, well, this is just perfect. So this is the thing, is our Virgoan consciousness really is the embodiment of the mystic, and we're all mystic, right? We all have a relationship to the divine. And, even if it's something that we haven't necessarily really focused on in our lives, or we wouldn't necessarily consider ourselves a mystic, the thing is that we're all an expression of the divine. So it's like we're innately a mystic, in my opinion. So revels in intimate union with the divine. So this is, Virgo, this is the devotion to the divine, devotion to the collective. And I think that it really speaks for itself. This is what we're going for, every one of us. I mean, we're living these expressions of the divine, and when we leave this incarnation, we're just going back to the divine. So it's like revels in the intimate union of the divine. It's just this eternal connection to the divine, and what we see as divine. What we see as divine is our connection to that God, goddess, source energy, however you name that energy. So I think that this new moon in Virgo could really just be, as we've moved from Mars opposition Neptune and the challenges that can bring, and just really also the reflections that can bring, it can bring our consciousness inward and be like, well, no matter how unique I am, I have my own connection to the divine, and that is what I'm honoring. And That's my personal relationship to the divine. And then as Mars trines Pluto retrograde, it's like, okay, now I know what kind of structures I want to put in place so that I'm being sure that as I am giving this service to the collective through my own alignment with the divine, that I'm actually funneling my energy in the way I'd like, that works for that goal and that path for me personally, right? And then the new moon in Virgo is where you can seed intentions. The new moon is always a seeding point that will actually play out for the next 6 months. So it's something you can be really looking at for the next 6 months. Like how do you want to nurture your relationship to what you see as divine, to the divine, to your service in the world, and to your own personal evolutionary path. The new moon in Virgo is very much about that. And as I said, the Virgo archetype is the priest or priestess. And so this is, you are the temple of the divine. And so how would you like to move forward with that, with this new moon in Virgo? The shadow attribute would be delusional rapport with the divine. So remember we talked about yesterday in the live, maybe the day before, Mars opposition Neptune can, Neptune and Pisces can be the parts that are so mystical that in a way we can, it contains everything, so we can get confused and we can create fantasies and delusions and illusions. And, that can be a misguidance, it can misguide us in where we want to funnel our energy and our devotion. So it's like misguided devotions. And so, I think that really connects with that shadow attribute, is like delusional rapport with the divine. It's creating delusions around our own connection to the divine. And maybe, I think that this is an opinion, so you can take it or leave it, of course. And with anything I say, it either resonates or it doesn't. But I think that one of the things about something I've been witnessing about the delusions and with Neptune and Pisces is this. I've been really noticing how, as a collective, we've really been conditioned to impose. Or to believe that everyone should believe the same thing as we do. And even to believe that if other people don't believe what we believe, then maybe our beliefs aren't true, or maybe their beliefs aren't true. And I don't think I think it's a delusion, because I think that we're all actually contributing a bigger picture of what the divine is and the expression of the divine. And we're all here bringing a different piece to that tapestry, as a lot of people call it, this divine tapestry, or the divine play that is being played out, which is really all an expression of God. It's all different facets of God or the divine. And so I don't know that there's anything right or wrong with anyone else's beliefs or our own. It's just a process and a path of actually experiencing aspects of the divine. And yes, there's illusions that are part of that. There's things that we find, I know in my life I've had experiences where I was entertaining illusions. And I think this is why we have to constantly do shadow work, because our psyche is extremely vast. And so we really do have to constantly be looking at our own motivations and our own unconscious motivations, and also handling the fact that a lot of us have been traumatized. A lot of us have had a really hard time understanding what our own needs are because of other people's delusions, or even like societal illusions, society's illusions in the past. And again, the thing about it is that it's an evolutionary process. So there's times that we're going to experience truths in our lives that work, and they are right and they're true for us. But then we will outgrow them because the truth is so vast. We have to actually, I always think of life as like, it's like this very slowed down process. We are literally evolving. We're in eternity already. We're already in eternity. We're just focusing very, very slowly on each little morsel. We're extracting each little morsel of understanding consciously of a bigger picture. And so recognizing that's a process, recognizing that we're also dealing with the infinite and the finite. So we're dealing with the infinite, but we are finite. Our ego is finite. We will, in this ego, live so long. And it's coming from that filter. Like, I'm going to see life from this egoic filter that wants to preserve my body, wants to preserve my life, right? We all have that. And that's okay. That's important. We have an ego. Therefore, we can grow through this ego. But it is limited. I have a limited perspective because I can only grasp so much in one identity. But I can tune into the vastness of it. And the more that I can tune into the vastness of it, the more that I can understand through this ego identity. So, I just think that one of the things I've been seeing is that there's, I think, a lot of conditioning of the past that has people really being very triggered because people believe something different than them. And, we know that that's caused a lot of pain in the past, in history. It's caused death, unnecessary death, and it's caused a lot of separation between individuals. And that was unnecessary. So there's a lot to that. I don't know that I want to go into it, but I am just really recognizing this delusion around how people get really triggered and really kind of mean when they don't resonate with your beliefs or vice versa. And I think it's a good idea to just be curious. We don't have to, and none of us, there's just no way that we're all going to believe the same thing. I don't think that gives a bigger picture of the divine. I think the divine is just so vast. And we're all experiencing the belief structures that support us and our evolutionary path. And it's okay if that doesn't resonate with everyone. So, I think if we could let go of that delusion that everyone has to believe in the same thing, or that we, need to be angry at somebody because they don't believe the same thing, or even put them down because we don't believe the same thing, I think that we would all be happier if we didn't do that. And I think that we all do have the right, and to me it should be an inherent right that we get to explore the belief structures that work for us and that are just a natural inclination for us as individuals. And I think it's just an inherent part of life that's going to happen, and that they're going to be different ones, and we're not all going to resonate with each other. And move towards those that are interesting to you and that are curious, and let go of the others. Because I think that we kind of create this this vibration in our own energy field when we have resistance. So we want to just go, oh yeah, that doesn't work for me, but I'm actually gonna move towards what works for me. Like, what is really interesting to me, and what does that tell me about myself and my own connection to source, or God, goddess, or God, however you name that energy. So, but the thing is delusions can be all kinds of things, right? And so I will, open it up for anybody that would want to share what they believe would be potential delusions. And anything that I've said, if you have any thoughts, comments, questions, I would love to hear. because again, I think everybody brings something interesting to the conversation. So it makes it richer, in my opinion. So I love hearing about it. Yeah, thank you, Dana. Yeah, exactly. Find your tribe. It's just finding the people that it feels good to explore things with. It feels good to explore ideas and ways to connect to the divine. Because I know for myself, I've learned from other people ways in which to connect to the divine. And so that's where I think it's great to follow your curiosity, follow that those desires that would lead you to the people that really resonate with your own curiosities and your own expansion of what the divine means to you. So, Saki, did you believe there is a God? Absolutely. I've always believed that. Always. Always, always. I actually had a memory come up to me recently. It's been a prominent memory throughout my life, but I remember when I was very young, like I think 5 years old or maybe even a little younger. I'm not exactly sure, but I don't think I was older than 5. I remember I was laying outside on the grass and I was looking up at the sky, and I remember my grandmother coming to me, and I was laying beside somebody. I don't know if it was a friend or who it was, but I remember my grandmother coming to me, and she was standing over me, and she said, "Now remember, you just get one life, and you got to be good. It's a test. You got to be good, because if you're good, you're going to go to heaven, and if you're bad, you're going to go to hell." And I remember being this young, like 5 or under. I mean, obviously I was at least, I probably was 5 or 4, but I remember going, no, I did not start here. This is not my first life. And I suspect it's not my only life, because I felt this sense of ancientness that I didn't remember before this life, but I just felt this, like I was ancient. And I was like, no, I didn't start here. And so I remember growing up and always feeling like, I was being told this belief, from people in my family. But for me, it didn't resonate that this was my first life. And, whether the ancientness that I was feeling was just God, the divine. I mean, who knows? I mean, we can't prove that there is reincarnation that I know of. So, but I've always just felt like I really think we have many lives. And I really didn't believe that it actually hurt me to believe that souls would go to hell, that there was an actual place called hell. But I personally think it's a metaphor. But we can create heaven on earth, and we can also create hell on earth. And so let's create heaven on earth. And, it was fine that my grandmother felt that way. That was her path, But I just remember it was like, that just doesn't resonate with me. And that's the thing, is we're not all going to resonate with each other. But for me, it was an important piece, I think, that she brought that to my attention, because it helped me to develop, well, what do I think about that belief? Well, for me, it just means that, that we can create hell for ourselves, and we can create heaven for ourselves. And that's what we're here to create heaven. We all want that in our own way, and we have that in us. And so this is why I love exploring all kinds of different belief systems, because I find that whether I feel that they're literally true or they're symbolically true. I love exploring different things because then I'm like, it just gets me pondering and it gives me more ideas around what I feel. So I think that this is how we can help each other, is just recognizing that we're all going to have different belief systems, and just being curious about other people's belief systems and our own, and what resonates with us and what doesn't, gives us the opportunity to know ourselves. And, there's this quote, know thyself, because knowing thyself, you become closer to God. And so I just want to honor that in everyone. And we really help each other to know thyself and know what resonates with us and what doesn't. And it's okay if we're different. I recently had an experience of seeing many of my past lives. Wow. It was so amazing because it helped me realize in a profound way that we are eternal. Yes. I would love to hear more about that. I've been trained in regression therapy, and a lot of people call it past life regression. And the reason for that is that even people that don't believe in past lives will go through this technique, will go into what seems to be past lives, because there'll be different eras, different time, and that's based on what comes up in the regression. And the techniques help us to figure out what kind of consciousness that the person is working with. So even when you don't believe in past lives, people go to past lives. So as my teacher says, whether you believe in past lives or not, there's a part of your psychology or psyche that does. And so this is the part that we want to work with. So the way I see it, because when I would get regressed, I would be like, am I making this up? Like, where's this coming from? And because I do a regression technique where you're conscious. It's not using hypnosis. And so, I'm like, am I making this up? And I'm like, well, it doesn't even matter. I mean, I even believe in past lives. And I was like, am I making this up? But I believe in past lives. But it doesn't really matter, because what I felt was that, well, even if it's tapping into the collective consciousness and that this is a healing that needs to happen, there's a reason why your brain is coming up with this, right? So I personally believe in past lives because I have done a lot of regressions. I've also received a lot of regression work, and it really resonates with my natal chart. And so the lifetimes that have come up resonates with the placements of my natal chart. And so I've experienced a lot of past lives through that technique. And I think I've had a couple experiences of spontaneous memory of being a different, of a different culture in a different time. It was fascinating. Particularly one is really prominent for me. But I also feel like maybe this is why sometimes we're naturally really interested in certain cultures and things like that, because maybe we had lifetimes in that culture. So it's a big part of our psyche. So I will hear your lecture later. I'm going to sleep. Okay, Saki, thanks for hopping on. I'm actually coming to a close anyway. So thanks for hopping on. Thanks for hopping on, Joy. I actually want to connect with you, so I'm going to send you a text here soon. I've been thinking about you today. So I was like, I got to do that. So I'm so glad that you hopped on. And if you weren't able to see what I talked about yesterday in regards to your questions, oh, okay, you did hear it. Oh, great. Great. All right. And Kulain, he's in school. That's great. I know. I love picking these cards. It's so fascinating. I'm not surprised that we picked the Mystic. That's so perfect for the Virgo Pisces axes. So tuning into our inner mystic, all of us as we continue through Virgo season and plant seeds for our Virgo consciousness on September 6th for the new moon. So thanks everyone for hopping on. It's so much fun. And as you know, I'll be back tomorrow.